I think that in the next hour the statements of the United States of America will appear. We have been waiting for a really long time. I know that the Russians again do not comply, but this is a conversation between the American side and the Russian. That is, everyone believed that first of all, the Americans should come out with statements and then messages from either side. But nevertheless, we have already discussed the latest agreements with Rustem Umerov. There will be two statements based on the results of agreements between the Ukrainian and American sides. And there is a separate American-Russian statement. Why? Because they are a little different. You will now understand why and understand the position of the parties. First of all, what we have agreed on is that there may be silence at sea. And free navigation, you basically know that. And in addition to what is briefly formulated in the statement, you will read this: we are grateful to the American side for this result. And it is important that we also talk separately with the American side about infrastructure. We have devoted a lot of time to this. What is meant? If it is silence at sea and free navigation, we are talking about infrastructure. Let's see how it will be performed. We will talk about it separately with you, about the details. Port infrastructure, etc. The second point is not to strike at the energy system. At the energy sector, let's say, at the energy network, that is, at the energy sector of the two countries, Ukraine and Russia. And here, separately, to the American side, we also handed over the objects. What I said, that we will separately transmit objects, which we consider to be strategic infrastructure facilities. Because we also went with this, we wanted to talk about any civilian infrastructure in addition to energy. In the statement, this will not be the case for civilian infrastructure. But we agreed on it. In principle, the American side believes that the silence in the sky regarding energy. Yes, as for energy, this also applies to other civilian infrastructure. But, nevertheless, it is already a good result if there are no strikes on the energy sector. This is no longer a small thing, this is the second point. As for the third point, this is control and monitoring. We have agreed with the American side that it is possible to involve, in addition to America, third parties. This is not bad. For example, someone from Europe or, for example, Turkey can be involved regarding the situation at sea. Maybe someone from the Middle East regarding energy. That is, these are separate technical issues. But the third point is that control is important, monitoring is important, and you can involve other countries for monitoring. The fourth point proposed by the American side is that everyone will work to have a sustainable peace as a result. That is, we are ready, we say again, that we are ready to move quickly towards an unconditional ceasefire and further to the next steps towards a sustainable just peace. This is the fourth. And the fifth point. Why two statements? Because the fifth point differs between our document with the American side and the Russian-American agreements. This was not in the agenda before the meeting. The Russians have raised the issue as far as we know. That is, as far as we know. The Russians raised the issue of the American side's assistance to the Russians regarding the transportation of their agro-industrial sector, agricultural products, that is, the issue of ports, tariffs, etc. We did not agree to this so that it would be in our general document. We believe that this is a weakening of positions and the easing of sanctions. In our opinion, we do not yet know the details of this point. And we were not present at the meeting, so I can't say anything. But it wasn't on our agenda. The American side raised this issue. Umerov contacted me. I said that this is not a discussion of an unconditional ceasefire, even a partial ceasefire in the sky, at sea, to remove certain obstacles for the Russians regarding agricultural products. We had the issue of the return of children, you remember, we had the issue of the exchange of prisoners of war and the exchange of civilians, so we agreed that there would be two statements. In our statement, the fifth point is that America will help us with the return of children, military and civilian prisoners. And the Russians will have what they agreed with them. This, in principle, is brief. There were long conversations. I believe that our side again worked constructively with the American side. I want to thank the American side and let's see how it works. There were normal developments. I have questions about how all this will be implemented. And with the return of our team, I want more details. Today it sounds like this. That when asked by our side, the Secretary of Defense asked the American side when it can take effect. And they believe that after the American side officially comes out with the statement, this may be the beginning of decisions already implemented in this document. Therefore, there is no faith in the Russians here, but I believe that we will be constructive. And if this is so, and now the Minister of Defense will confirm it to me by phone, then we will be constructive. To do its job on the implementation of the agreements of the Ukraine-US meeting.
Andriy Stasiuk, Suspiln. Mr. President, the clarification on the truce is just at sea. Will it fully apply to all ports? And also clarification on energy, is this list included in oil refineries, or are they purely those that are electricity?
Everything is related to energy. We do not affect their energy, they do not affect our energy. I think there are a million questions, honestly, I think so, there will be a million questions and details. But today it sounds like this. That each of the parties does not use appropriate weapons on the energy of both sides. That's how it sounds. As for the sea, right? But I will tell you, we separately, just in case, handed over a list of all our objects. We have conveyed which objects, we believe, cannot be struck. Just in case, that's what I said, that we would technically be very ready. And so it was. We were very ready for this meeting. As for the sea, it means that we are talking about the silence of the sea and free navigation. We're not talking about military targets, they can't move, right? We say, cargo shipping, the way we go, it must go. Free navigation of civil ships. It is not so strongly described, believe me, in this declaration. That is, these are, let's say, the first steps. And let's see how it works. I ask the following question. We cannot yet write a word in the first such document, for example, an elevator. But what to transport if a rocket arrives at an elevator? Therefore, I am, for example, about grain, etc. And that's why I had such a question. As an example, our side also communicated with the American side. They believe that silence at sea and free navigation, civil shipping says everything, and that it is impossible to strike at the infrastructure of ports. There will still be a lot of contrivances under these agreements. You should also understand. I just tried to come to you as soon as possible before there is an official declaration, so that you just don't have to wait here for a long time. Although the American side has not yet issued an official declaration. Okay, please.
Regarding the mineral agreement, I also wanted to clarify at what stage is it now. After all, again there was a statement by Trump that they were about to sign. More on this. Thanks.
Yesterday, my team briefed me on a new deal. What does it look like now? This is a big, complete agreement, the vision of the American side as they see it. That is, from the steps that were before, the framework agreement, do you remember? And after the framework agreement, a complete agreement is developed. Now the American side has offered our side a big deal right away. Their vision. I don't have any details yet. I asked to deal with this agreement normally, to clarify all the details in this agreement and then to get together, realizing that this is already a serious document. And such a document will be shown to me, and for sure such a document will work out by the parties and then go to the parliament for ratification.
Sonia Hryhorchuk, Rada TV channel. Also, very small clarifications, but do these statements provide for any consequences if one of the parties breaks the silence? And the main question, in fact, about the summit of the Willow Coalition, in 2 days in Paris. What specific decisions do you expect from the summit?
Thank you for asking. I ask the same question because it is not in the statement. If someone violates it, then this is not in the statement. I understand why. Because the American side really wanted all this not to fail. So that the first agreements do not fail. Therefore, we did not want to go into many details. Still, we will have to understand the answers to each of the details. To my question to our team, the team asked this question to the American side. My question was identical to your question. Today we have such an answer, the same for now. Then the team will return, and they will tell me more details. We have the same answer that if we see someone violating, we believe that we are addressing all our lines to the American side, with the facts and evidence that the Russian side violated this. As for Paris, there will be a meeting in Paris. I will have a separate meeting, a big meeting of my team with the French team. We will work on all this in the evening before the summit. And the summit will be in the morning the next day. And there will be a meeting of countries who are ready with security guarantees and who are still hesitant. Our task is to come up with the result of understanding who we have and who is ready to implement the direction of the contingent in terms of security guarantees. We want to get results. It seems to me that these may already be the first results and we can theoretically get specifics on certain countries.
Volodymyr Alexandrovich, please tell me, how can you comment on that moment from Steve Witkoff's interview about Crimea, Donbass and those 3 regions of Ukraine? You know, it's a quote.
First of all, you know, my attitude, I think. There are big disadvantages and there are pluses in all this, in this topic. I want to explain my opinion. First of all, unfortunately, there is a lot of information spread by certain people, and the person you mentioned and his messages, unfortunately, maybe he has a lot of different messages. But these messages very much coincide with the messages of the official Kremlin. And they have already heard these messages more than once. As for referendums, the most evidentiary story is with the referendum. We all know that there were no real legislative grounds for holding referendums. Secondly, no one can legitimize these referendums because they were at gunpoint. Thirdly, dead souls and full of evidence of who voted there, who did not vote in the first place. That is, everyone knows that there have been no legal referendums and no one in the world recognizes them. Therefore, unfortunately, it is first what unfortunately is and then where there is a plus. That is, unfortunately, this is the message of the Russians and has always been a message about referendums only from Russians. The second story is that no one recognizes these territories as Russian. And unfortunately, there are some voices, you see, in the United States of America, at a high level, who disseminate this information. That these lands once belonged and were once Russian. That is, these are again the same narratives of the Russians, the Kremlin. There is nothing new here. Then they have a story. How they artificially transferred these territories to us. This is Putin's work, everyone knows this work, it is official, it is different in all his messages. I believe that Mr. Witkoff just spent a lot of time in dialogue with Putin. But what are the advantages of this? I'll explain it to you. That is, when there is no trust in a person at all. Then you don't believe even a word. And that's what's going to happen in the relationship, I really believe that, between the United States of America and the Russians. Because they told Witkoff about the end of the war, that they wanted the end of the war, about an unconditional ceasefire. Everyone already sees that the ceasefire has definitely failed. Because the Russians don't want to. Moreover, even these unconditional agreements that we have just talked about regarding the sky and sea, and the humanitarian direction exchange. Anyway, they inserted their agro-industrial products right there on the spot. And since everyone understands that the United States wants to bring a result, and Trump needs a result, and it is fair that he talks about it, that he wants a result. And they understand, that is, they act in their own spirit. And disbelief in the Russians because of this will be greater every day. I hope, and indeed I see this hope realistically now. But let's see that there will be no faith in all, in principle, Russian narratives. There will be no trust in them. That the American side will eventually deal with these narratives. That all this is a lie. Yes, and I don't want to talk about drones anymore. I don't want to just comment on all this. Soldiers, by the way, in the Kursk direction, this is another of such arguments that our soldiers are surrounded. This was said by Witkoff and the Russians, or the Russians and Witkoff, and that's it. In principle, no one else spoke, because it is enough just to look at the satellite. And the American side has it. I don't see these problems. I just don't see these problems. Our military was not surrounded. They never were and could never be. Because we would not risk our people for their hectares there. That's it. That's why I say. Unfortunately, there is a downside that there is a lot of Russian information. But there is a plus that a little bit this myth about Putin's desire to end Putin's war disappears. This myth disappears.
Ukrinform, Tetiana Pasova. Mr. President, please clarify whether I understand correctly that from the moment the statement was announced by the American side, the partial ceasefire comes into force? Additional documents are not required?
We think so. We ask the same question. We have no one to put it on. We, our team, asked this question to the American side. And they said yes, we are waiting for a signal from official Washington. But we believe that after Washington officially comes out with two statements, with these statements, in which there is only one point, as I told you, then silence on the water, and the silence on energy should work. It should work, in their opinion. Of course, it also depends on the president's orders to their military. Of course, it depends.
Are the next rounds of negotiations scheduled?
It was agreed that they would be. In the near future.
Thank you, Union. Mr. President, I would like to ask you, is it even possible to negotiate a ceasefire with the Russians if they are already voicing demands that Kherson and Zaporizhzhia be given to them? And in this context, during today's and yesterday's negotiations, were there already any concessions from the Russian side and our side? Thanks.
There are no questions about the territory, so it doesn't matter what they say. You and I must go in our strategy. I believe that whatever ceasefire decisions there are, even partial ones, they are in our strategy. Why? Because we show concretely that we want the war to end. We want it and we are going for it. Therefore, when they begin to twist that not a complete cessation but a partial one, not in this area but in this region, Anyway, this is a loss for someone who really wants to continue the war, because he will disrupt any ceasefire agreements. In our concept, everything is very simple. You don't want a complete ceasefire? We told you. Okay, do you want in the sky? Let's go. No, you don't want in the sky, do you want in the sea? Let's go. And do you want to go to sea and partly energy? Let's go. That is, it is in our strategy. Our strategy is certainly to negotiate some kind of ceasefire. As soon as we agree, we have done our job. Then the American side, it monitors. And then we have questions for the American side, for partners, as we agreed on it. What question? If the Russians violate this, we have a question for President Trump. Then I have a direct question for the President. I'm so grateful, you really tried, it's all right. You agreed as best you could, and God grant that he succeeds, because we are interested. But if they violate, here is evidence, we ask for pressure, we ask for sanctions, we ask for weapons, and so on. Here is my position on this. Therefore, the Russians constantly expect. And what if it were in such way? And what if it were in that way? Look, we are ready for such steps.
Deutsche Welle. Mr. President, I have a question about monitoring this ceasefire, or rather, clarification. Is there consent from any third countries that could control it? And whether the issue of American sanctions or any other means of pressure on Russia was raised. If this ceasefire is not respected?
We wanted to ask a lot of different questions. And it is true that that team did not have a mandate to answer these questions or discuss them. This team discussed only those issues that we agreed on. There were no questions about the territory, there were no questions in the sanction. The only thing we raised because of that point that I told you about is that we believe this is part of easing the pressure on them. And this is not timely.
And what about third countries?
They agreed on this, we are not against third countries.
That is, the bottom line is that we are not against third countries?
No, the essence of the monitoring agreement is that fact. That the monitoring is carried out by the American side and not only. That is, we understand that de facto we have agreements with the American side. And the point is formulated in such a way that we are not against it, everyone is not against it, everyone is not against the involvement of third parties. That is, this suggests that we have a conversation and dialogue with the American side. And for us, they are the main ones who are responsible for monitoring. Because we have intelligence with the American side, you know this very well. And what are these third countries? The American side raises the question, is everyone against third countries? They discussed it at the working level. The teams discussed what it could be. If it was the sea, it could be Turkey. No one has communicated yet. It could be Turkey. It could be someone from the Middle East. Saudi Arabia in terms of energy, maybe. But look, so far it can be. I believe that today someone should monitor this. That's why I told you so. In my opinion, today there are Americans and there are us. And that's a lot. And we know how to monitor it. Sky, energy and sea. We will monitor all this very quickly, sorry for using such a word, and give all answers to the American side where there was a violation.
Japanese TV company, Igor Gerasko, Mr. President. Please tell me, as a result of any negotiations, the weak and strong positions of the parties are manifested. What would you call the strongest position of the Ukrainian side? And what else do we have to work on?
It's hard to say now. I believe that we are in normal shape today. In our country, despite the fact that it is difficult. Very tough and difficult. I believe that our front is in good condition today. Preferably better. Of course, there are challenges. Of course, there are deficits. But, in principle, somewhere there, you know, we have worked something out. Both in terms of shells and assistance. Unblocked somewhere. I think it's not bad. Some contracts are being fulfilled. New drones are emerging. New distances, new challenges. I believe that we are in good condition. This is not a bad side for us because we understand that the army is our guarantee of security. And that's why I started with this. And that's why it is important during negotiations when, you hold blows. Yes, and that's okay. The second story is that we are not playing with the ceasefire. And from the very beginning, we started doing it. Many people and many countries sincerely opened their eyes wide. Those who especially thought that we would not go for it and believed that this was a dead end and that the Russians were counting on it. We are doing what we see fit to build a strategy for these victories. I think these are our good sides. Are they strong or weak? Let's take a look, time will tell. Thanks.
Thanks. I would like to clarify about monitoring after all. You said that the agreement comes into force after the US statement. Please tell about the monitoring.
The American side believes that our agreements come into force after they are announced by the American side.
And immediately their monitoring begins, right?
They will not be able to provide you with full monitoring right away. In my opinion, today their equipment. Our equipment, our specialists and their specialists, also from European countries. I don't want to say which ones, but because of this one there is a clause about the involvement of third countries, that is, intelligence, European and American satellites, enough to immediately monitor. In my opinion. But still, I emphasize once again, there are some technical things, probably not in 1 minute, not in 1 hour, right? But of course, all the same, the Americans are at a high technical level to see a lot of everything at sea and a lot of everything in the sky. Because when a rocket flies, you and I know about it. And we talked about the risks if there is a freeze on intelligence sharing. So what is important? When ballistics are prepared, not that it flies, ballistics is prepared, in principle, American satellites, Americans see and know this. Therefore, there is a signal to the citizens of Ukraine, so there is an opportunity to go down to the bomb shelter and save lives. That is, I believe that this monitoring is technical, it is at a high level. Yes, he became at a high level because of this war and during this war. This is a fact. But the presence of the technical American is at a high level.
And you can clarify about ports. For example, the Mykolaiv port is blocked today. Does this mean that the Mykolaiv port will be unblocked?
I can't tell you that now. I can't. I interpret free navigation as you say. But I believe that the Russians will definitely do everything. See, we are taking the right steps. These are the first, although they are not the first of the first, but the first steps with this administration, with this president. Regarding the end of the war and the complete end of the war and the possibility of a complete ceasefire and steps towards a sustainable just peace, about agreements. And so I think we're doing the right thing, that we're supporting it and we're going down that path. But we know, for example, when we had a corridor with Turkey, with the mediation of Turkey and Guterres. And we remember how it was blocked by Russia. That is, it worked, but long checks, especially making queues, doing something else there, being dissatisfied, it worked. But with difficulties. To say that it will work easy here? No. And it's too early to say that it will work. But these were the right meetings, the right decisions, the right steps. After that, no one can accuse Ukraine of not moving towards sustainable peace.
I would like to return to the summit in Paris, which will take place on Thursday. Is the United States involved in the discussion of the idea of deploying a contingent in Ukraine? And in your opinion, what is the possible support of the United States for this initiative?
Thank you for asking. From the very beginning, we have talked with our European colleagues and will continue to do so. We, in principle, have the infrastructure to make it look like We have a difference in the number and presence of personnel in one form or another. We will certainly discuss these differences. It depends on the desire, on the vision of a particular country and on funding, of course. But in general, we see the Union of Europe and the United States in terms of security guarantees, of which the continent is a part. And we do not yet know about the role and what it may be of the United States, but we anticipate. There are options for this role. Everyone would like it to be with a backstop, so the Americans say. Backstop of America. And so let's see how it goes. I don't want to spoil now. To be honest, on this topic, because there is no agreement yet. We have different formats on how to coexist together.
Mr. President, two short questions. When the negotiations were in full swing, President Trump came out with statements. We are discussing territories, we are discussing energy. You just said that there were no such issues with the Ukrainian delegation, at least. Or maybe we don't know something, maybe there are some other delegations, because these technical delegations that have the right and mandates are discussing this topic. And on the other hand, regarding energy,
I think the American side is talking to the Russians about the territory.
Are we worried about this?
No, we are concerned that the United States of America has influence over Russia. And not vice versa. This is the most important thing for us. President Trump has enough forces, tools, sanctions, etc., various tools, to influence the Russians, Putin, so that they end this war. We are concerned about the question when they discuss something about us without us. We are worried, we are telling our partners at the same time. But of course, we see and hear it in messages, in the media, from statements by officials, which we have also talked about today, official people from the United States of America. That is, it is clear that they raise the issue of territories. There were no agreements with us regarding the territory. They know these are painful questions. I talked about this at the very beginning. I believe that with the Russians it will be the most difficult in two issues. This is a complete ceasefire. Even before the first meeting, I talked about it. Because the Russians do not want to end the war. And the issue of territories. Because the Russians do not want to end this war. That is, two different questions, but the same reason. And therefore, it will be a difficult dialogue. But it will.
As for the power plant, can you add something? Because Trump said about the power plant.
We discussed the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant with him on the phone once. I think they also discussed this with the Russians. I think so. I don't think there are any other negotiators. There are these teams, there are their employees. I think they are discussing it. I hope that there are no other negotiators. I hope, but I don't know them. And we talked about the nuclear power plant with President Trump. I told him that just picking up the station would not work. In addition to the station, there is a city, these people live there, their families are there. I said that they blew up the dam, that is, access to water. Many questions. And no one will give electricity to the Russians. They expected that the Zaporizhzhia station would provide them with electricity. No, this is our station. It will not work without us and will not work for them. Here is my position, I told President Trump about it. And he told me that it needed to be repaired, and I told him, yes, everyone knows this, the IAEA confirmed, our technicians confirmed, we are thinking about 2 to 2.5 years to raise it, to put it on its feet. As they say, this station needs a lot of money. And he asked me if we could work together on this topic. I told him, yes, if you invest in modernization, yes, if you help us get the station back, okay. This is a normal conversation.
Thanks.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear colleagues. This is the end of it.
Good luck, goodbye.